Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Entertainment Expansion. We're your hosts, Tyler Callahan and Mike Ferrante. Mike, how you doing this week?
Well, unusually, Tyler, I'm chilling this week.
Hmm. Well, that makes one of us because I'm not. Got some sad news coming out of Hollywood.
Very.
Uh, Apparently, Disney and Sony may be getting a divorce. And if that does happen, so far, it looks like it's not a pretty one either, with both companies leaking to the press and just straight up calling each other out. And if you
Yep.
do not know what we're talking about, it has come out that there are negotiations for a new contract between Sony and Disney, so Disney can use Spider-Man and its characters in the MCU. And negotiations as of now have,
Completely fallen through.
yeah, that'd probably be the best way. There are some reports that they're still talking, but at least publicly, it looks like discussions have fallen through, and it looks like Spider-Man may be leaving the MCU a lot sooner than we expected. I guess before
Yep.
we go into our opinions, Mike, do you want me to just break down what the contracts were and what they want?
Yes, if I am not mistaken,
Hmm.
Disney was only granted 5% of opening weekend
Yep.
box office amount.
Hmm.
But they did have the toy sales, correct?
Yes. Disney does own the merchandising sales. So, for example, for Far From Home, if you're in Best Buy, you're in Target, whatever, you see action figures, you see T-shirts, whatever. That's all Disney money.
Yep. And Disney, after the success of the past two Spider-Man movies they've been involved in, they said, hey, why not? Instead of 5% on opening weekend, how about we get 50% on everything?
That is correct.
And Sony was uh, not happy about that.
Understandably so. And I feel we kind of have the same opinion on this. So before we kind of shit on Disney in a few minutes, we should also mention why they're asking. The previous deal, you're right. After the first weekend, all the money is for Sony. But the deal was also set up so that Sony is funding the entire movie, right? So Marvel Studio more or less makes the movie, Sony writes the checks. And Disney's not coming in demanding to take 50% of the money. They also do want to be a proper co-financier of the movie, proper co-production. So they'll put up 50% of the cost as well. But in return, they want 50% of the profit. But like you said, the 50-50, especially coming off 5% for the first weekend, that's a big jump. Uh,
Huge.
there there have been reports that Disney wants to work them down to 30%. I don't know if Sony will take that or not. And you can see both sides. For Disney, they can make the case they revitalized Spider-Man. I'm looking at box office numbers here, and Spider-Man: Far From Home is the second highest grossing Spider-Man movie domestically, and Spider-Man: Homecoming is number 5. Do you happen to know what number 6 and 7 are?
Let me just take a guess and say it's The Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2.
You'd be correct.
Yeah.
And just to break it down, The Amazing Spider-Man 2 did so poorly that it made 202 million domestic. When Disney took over and made Spider-Man: Homecoming, it shot right back up to 334. And if we go worldwide, it's more or less the same. Worldwide, Spider-Man: Far From Home is number 1 worldwide at 1.1 billion and is Sony's highest grossing movie ever, beating Skyfall. So you can see why they're a bit hesitant to just give 50% of that money away. And
Of
Spider-Man:
course.
Homecoming is in 3rd place. And once again, 6th and 7th place are Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2. Even worldwide, people did not like those movies.
That's pretty accurate.
So Disney, while kind of being a dick about this, no offense to Disney, is like, you you have Avengers Endgame. You can take a loss somewhere.
You can, but I don't know. I feel like Disney kind of deserves a little bit more than 5% on opening weekend.
Oh no, yeah, no, you're right. I mean, 5% of opening weekends, like, all right, if it made 200 million, here's $10 million, you're done. It's like, I think it all breaks down to how much work is Marvel Studios making for the movie. Like,
Yes.
Kevin Feige runs the studio, but he's a Disney employee. So they could be like, look, he's our crown jewel of this operation. If he has to keep coming over to Sony to help produce this movie, we want to be compensated because we have other movies he needs to be working on. I could see that. But also, let me make Sony's case. Sony's case would be we're successful without you. Case in point, Venom, making over $800 million, and the Spider-Verse movie, while it wasn't a big moneymaker, it did get us an Oscar. Also, they have to defend the studio a bit. Since they lost James Bond, their only other main franchise is Jumanji. I would add Men in Black, but after Men in Black International, that doesn't seem to be the case.
Yeah, that movie didn't perform so well, like at all.
So think about it from the executive's point of view. Right now, they're getting billion-dollar movies from this. But let's say they still get billion-dollar movies after the deal. They're only getting 500 million. However, if they leave and make less successful movies, even if the less successful movies are, say, 700 million, they keep all that money. And their shareholders will be very happy. They don't care about the fans' feelings. They care about the money. So I see both sides here, but you think Disney's being a bit too harsh here, though, right? Like, yeah, they deserve more than 5%, but
Of opening weekend, yes.
yeah, of opening weekend.
Shooting up to 50 for whole is a little ridiculous. Like, if you really want to make a big stride, say 10% overall. Not 10% for just the opening weekend, but make it 10% overall.
You had actually, we were talking about this yesterday, going over the show. You had a good idea. I thought it was a decent idea for a contract. Would you mind going over what your idea for a contract would be and how like they work up to say 30, 50%?
So you'd start off with the smaller route, and essentially, let's say they said 10% of all gross income.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if that Spider-Man movie is as successful, if not more successful than the last one, you renegotiate it to 15, maybe 20, and then you work your way up from there. As long as the movies are still becoming successful because of Marvel Studios.
It's basically over time they can get a bigger cut if they become more successful, and if not, well then they stay at the 10 or 20% or whatever they were at.
Correct.
Which is fine because that makes them work for their money. And I mean, and it still works for Sony because, all right, worst case, let's say the fourth Spider-Man movie makes a bit less than the third. Cool. You only still have to pay Disney 10 or 15%. That didn't make more than the last one, so you don't have to give them a bigger cut.
Yep.
So I thought that was a pretty good idea. But there is an issue on the Sony side. The head person running Sony is apparently a bit of an asshole. Reports are coming out. He thinks he can do everyone's job better, and he is not a fun person to work with. And another issue is apparently he was the head guy at Fox during the bad X-Men years. Basically, from the Last Stand on, he approved that. He signed off on X-Men Origins Wolverine, and he is also part of the reason Deadpool was shelved for a time. So while this guy may have had some good movies under his belt, he, at least comic book wise, is a bit of a dumpster fire.
Yes.
Because again, a lot of
book movie for his life.
And a lot of reports coming out left and right because everyone is shitting on each other using social media now. Twitter is on fire with what's happening. But apparently, one of the reports is saying he feels now, after working with Kevin Feige a bit on these two movies, him and his team has learned all that they can from him and Marvel Studios, and that they will just use their tactics and be just as successful. And if he ever listens to this, which I don't think he would, but it'd be funny if he did, sir, you're a fucking idiot. These movies are only as big as they are because they're connected to the MCU. Do you know how stupid you would have to be to try and make Spider-Man 3 with Tom Holland and cut out Happy, most of his suits, all the Stark tech? It's like if they do split up, they would have to reboot Spider-Man, right? They would. Do you think
I don't
so?
know if they reboot it.
Like,
but
you have to get rid of Tom Holland.
Not necessarily.
But that's the thing, though. It's so public. People would know this is a Spider-Man movie that's not connected to the other ones. They're not.
That's correct. But it wouldn't be as hard detaching him from the MCU as you think. You could still use technically the suits, but you can't use any of the intelligence for it.
Like the AI.
Correct. Now, Peter's a genius,
Mm-hmm.
correct?
Yes,
What if he changed the AI and made it his own?
you could. Or you could have a montage at the beginning showing how he gets adjusted to his new life since his identity is exposed. That means building new suits by himself since
Yep,
Tony Stark is dead.
without any help and without any mention of Tony Stark or
Mm-hmm.
the MCU, and he's back stuck in Queens.
That's true.
Too difficult to spin his own version of it without the MCU. It would be a huge mistake for future movies.
It would. And yeah, yes, technically for a movie you can write around it. But I honestly think the fan outrage would be so much that the movie would take a huge hit money wise.
Oh yeah,
And knowing Sony, they will try to overcompensate, and we will probably get a Green Goblin at some point, even though he has not been built up, because you need something big to make it up. And I don't know, probably tease Venom. Like I don't know what it is though with Spider-Man and a third movie in the trilogy. I really don't know.
it's a curse, honestly.
It really is a curse. Spider-Man can't count to three.
No, he can't. The
Um,
second barely counts to two.
and I would
That's
say
fun.
this hurts Marvel Studios a bit because they kind of built up Spider-Man to be like one of the next main guys, but they can rebound from this real quickly. They can just in a future movie just write out Spider-Man being like, hey, whatever happened to him? Be like, yeah, no, he went into hiding since his identity was exposed, and that's it. He's gone.
Yep.
And people are like, well, he's built up as one of their main guys. Like, yeah, but Marvel Studios has not played the X-Men card yet, and I think you just have one movie right off Spider-Man, show off a new Wolverine. I think people will move on pretty quickly.
Very fast. They've got a lot of new hands that they can play. The
Hmm.
Fantastic Four, X-Men.
Yeah, you're right. Fantastic Four is based in New York as well. If they get that right, boom, you have another set of superheroes made for New York. Done. And because people think, you remember back in Homecoming, the Avengers Tower was up for sale.
Yep.
People were thinking it'd be Oscorp. No, it's a Fantastic Four building now. Done. But yeah, we wanted to talk about this because it was kind of big news. Because I thought, Far From Home passing a billion, it'd be no questions that a deal would be made. And then here comes in Disney walking in demanding 50%.
Yeah.
They
A
got
little
some
ball.
balls.
Didn't really work out well for him.
No, it hasn't because now this has gone public and everyone's just pissing on each other.
Yeah.
And the only people that lose in this, honestly, are the fans. Like people are just seeing
Heavily.
these two studios fight over it, and no one's happy.
Not a single person, honestly.
And this news just came in today. It's nothing related to Spider-Man, but Tom Holland is having a really bad week. Another Sony movie, the Uncharted movie, starring Tom Holland as Nathan
Can't.
Drake. No, no, but it lost its fifth director.
Ooh.
Apparently, it's another director already planning to take over, and the movie will not be delayed. So, assuming they can actually start filming sometime soon, it'll be out next Christmas. But that would make it director number 6 for this movie.
That's not good.
And it's a shame because the director was Dan Trachtenberg, who made 10 Cloverfield Lane. So, decent director too.
Yeah,
Wonder what
well,
happened.
maybe Sony's just really hard to work with.
Yeah, which I thought Sony was turning it around with Jumanji. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, they gave Quentin Tarantino whatever they wanted, but apparently, still a pain in the ass as a studio.
Yeah, and it really shows the quality of their movies.
Oh yeah, I mean, who can forget a summer favorite such as Men in Black International? I remember all the characters' names and details in that movie. It was so memorable.
Yeah, I kind of can't really tell you any of the agents' names, and they're easy. It's just Agent Letter.
I'm being sarcastic. I mean, fucking Thor and Valkyrie and MIB. That's about it.
Yeah, but I still can't. I can't for the life of me remember what their names were.
So, I thought it was L. I thought one of them was Agent L.
It's a shame it wasn't H&M. Am I right? Too soon. Too soon.
That would have been a funny joke.
What would have been?
All right. Well, if anyone else has any thoughts about Spider-Man, Disney, or Sony and this whole feud, Mike, where can they let us know about that?
Well, as always, you can either send us an email at entertainmentexpansion@outlook.com, or if you don't want to go that route, feel free to send us a direct message or comment on our latest post, which is properly labeled Entertainment Expansion, which you can find on Instagram. And will this be a YouTube video, Tyler?
I think this will be a YouTube video.
Well, then you can also find us and comment directly under our YouTube channel on this exact video, which will be posted shortly.
It will be posted shortly. Just as a fun fact, when I brought up the numbers earlier, I brought them up from Box Office Mojo, and I looked up Spider-Man overall as a franchise, and guess what I saw on the upcoming releases? The Amazing Spider-Man 3 and 4 with release date to be determined. I guess Box Office Mojo is still hoping for those movies to come out.
Yeah. Not really gonna happen though.
No, not like anyone wants them.
No.
Well, that's it for this week's episode of Entertainment Expansion. And hopefully next week's episode will be a bit more upbeat. We'll go over some actual movies.
Hopefully good ones.
Hopefully. Thanks for listening, and see you next week.